Okay, everybody, it is Susan Gerbic out here in Salinas, California. The sun is up, everyone. I'm so happy. Okay, let me share my screen. And let me go to slideshow. And let me move this. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. How do I get to the stupid slideshow? There it goes. Fantastic. All right, I am Susan Gerbic, and actually this has been so much fun because there's been so many people who are a part of my world here, and I have been friends with so many of you for so many years. It's great to see you all. I want to make sure I mentioned that these kinds of lectures, the SkeptiCamp that's happening here with the New York City Skeptics, this is activism. It is science communication. It is getting your art going and making people think about what they should be doing in the world, and finding your niche, as we keep saying, is find something that you feel passionate about and make that your own. Own it. If it's Scientology, if it's homeopathy, if it's perpetual motion machines, learn about it and find out how you can best educate people as a science communicator about that topic. But what I'm going to talk about today is the GSoW project, mostly about Wikipedia. I will talk about psychics as well, but not about anything that anybody else has talked about, I think. So we are a Wikipedia editing team that is working to improve, to create, rewrite, and support all Wikipedia pages concerning science, scientific skepticism, and claims of the paranormal. We have the backs of people who are people of science. We want to make sure they have the best foot forward, the most possible, bestest, wonderfulest Wikipedia pages possible. We are doing this because we recruit, we train, we mentor people just like yourselves. And we have several people on this screen that are members of the GSoW project. And that is where activism starts. Guerilla Skepticism on Wikipedia. Mark said I need to make sure I say the words instead of just GSoW. Wikipedia is one of the most important websites in the world, and it has the rules of Wikipedia are the rules of skepticism. If you were to Google something, as I've done here with one of our friends, James Alcott, as you'll see on the screen, I've just put James Alcott and then parentheses around his name, and what comes up, the first thing on his page is the Wikipedia page that we wrote for him. And also on the right-hand side, you'll see a Google Knowledge panel, and the Google Knowledge panel has all sorts of information about James Alcott, but what they usually do is they put the first few sentences of a Wikipedia page in there. So you don't have to go to Wikipedia to get the information. You're getting your information from a Google screen. Also in some cases, if you were to ask Alexa, who is James Alcott, Alexa's gonna read back the first few lines of a Wikipedia page. So Wikipedia influences the media, journalism, people who are your friends and neighbors, all kinds of people, students, they get their information from Wikipedia. Even if they don't say, I was just reading a Wikipedia page, that is where they're getting this information from, because you go there first to get an overview of what it is that you're interested in learning about. And that's how we do things. So damn it, our community needs to make sure that these Wikipedia pages are in the best shape we possibly can. We need to make sure that they're well written and interesting with photographs, and so people will start at the top and work their way down and find fantastic information. Now, my project is mostly on Facebook. We use Facebook for organizing our group. We use Google Documents for training. It takes a little over 2 months to train with me. I'm going to talk about one specific Wikipedia page that we have just recently written, and it's important to the world we're living in right now with COVID. So I was watching the Rachel Maddow show, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little fast because I got a lot of slides to go through. The Rachel Maddow show is, I hope everybody does, it's a wonderful show, and she was talking about something called a PPE Portrait Project. Now, she had just learned about this herself, and she did probably 15 minutes on this. Now, we can't write a Wikipedia page about just any old thing. It has to have a certain area of notability before it can have a Wikipedia page. And it would take me far too long to explain that to you, what that means. But just assume that some things can have Wikipedia pages and some things can't have Wikipedia pages, and some are kind of in the middle where it's on the fence. The PPE Portrait Project, when it got discussed by Rachel Maddow for 15 minutes on MSNBC, became notable because she started talking about it. So the PPE Portrait Project is basically, we're all seeing this image when we watch TV, and thankfully, if we're not in the hospital, we are not seeing that in person. But can you imagine the most frightening time of your life? And this is what you're seeing when you're walking around, or that are walking around you. These are these warm, wonderful human beings who are trying to save your life and trying to save everybody's lives. But they're these giant blue things. And if you're not cognitively all there at the moment, or you're a young child, this could be freaking frightening to you. So you don't see the human behind this wall of blue. So what this woman did, and you can read all about it on the on the PPE Portrait Project page on Wikipedia, is back in Libya with Ebola, she noticed that this was a pretty scary thing to see these people without any kind of, face. They're just eyes and shield. And she started this project by having them take a selfie or something like that, and then they printed it out and they put it on their PPE. And so you can see this person right in front of you, Nurse Ruth, as a smiling, wonderful, loving human being. And it makes you feel a lot more compassion and a lot more warmth towards that person, knowing that they have a face behind that. And they also have said that the people who are the doctors and the nurses who have to interact like this, it makes them feel better to be interacting with a face, even if it is on their PPE gown. And this is another example that shows 3 different people with their PPE portrait on their PPE gown. And you can see these are wonderful, loving, smiling images of people. And you feel better about this horrible time you're in. I know it's horrible, but at least this is one way of making it a little less scary. And I just found this picture just a couple days ago when I was reading the New York Times. I have my subscription to the New York Times. I hope you all do as well. We have to support good journalism. But you can see these people here on the screen that have their PPE plastic pictures on a lanyard that they're wearing, and how wonderful that is. So I was able to create a Wikipedia page for the PPE Portrait Project, which did not exist. And because my team is one of the only teams that trains and write their own training material, and we communicate with each other on a regular basis with each talking about our projects, we also write in languages other than English, which is super important that we get this message out, that people are able to read about whatever they want to read about in the language that they want to read it in. So we translated this Wikipedia page that we wrote into Afrikaans, into German, into French, into Italian, and into Slovenian, so that people who were able to find this Wikipedia page are able to get really good information about this really interesting project called the PPE Portrait Project. And it's such a great idea, and it's activism, and it's science communication on the most popular, one of the most popular websites in the world. I think Wikipedia is valued at somewhere at the 4th to somewhere in the top 10 of most viewed websites in the world. So now I did this yesterday. If you Google Wikipedia, if you Google PPE Portrait Project, you will find that it is one of the first hits you get is to the Wikipedia page. In this case, I did yesterday. It was PPE Portrait Project, their website, then images, and something else that's under the screen. I can't see at this moment. Oh, Stanford. And then you can see there's the Wikipedia page that comes up. Now, GSoW has done this over 1,500 times, writing these Wikipedia pages. One of the guys on the screen right now, Leon, I think he's written 200 or 300 by himself, if not more. He'll tell me in a minute. I wouldn't be surprised if it's over 300 himself. A lot in Dutch and a lot in English. So now I'm changing my hat. Mark told me to take my hat off, so I'm not really wearing a hat. I'm going to talk about psychics. So this is, and how it ties into the Wikipedia project. So as I've explained to you multiple times, it is really important to get this information that we are learning about onto Wikipedia pages. Get it out of the choir. I mean, it's one thing if we're all sharing this information within our communities, which is still really, really important to learn about. I mean, I bet a lot of you didn't know about facilitated communication until Janice spoke this morning. Janice and I hear this all the time. You got to be kidding. That's still around? That was debunked 30 years ago. Yes, it is still around. They changed the name and they still do it. Yesterday, I wrote to a journalist about putting out one of these articles. And yes, you too can write on Twitter and tell that journalist, what the hell are you doing? Do not support pseudoscience with this feel-good story about a little girl. It isn't real. And if you shame them and not attacking them, but let them know that there is more to the story. We can do this kind of activism. So this is a psychic that you may not have heard of before. Her name is Jeanette Wilson. She is a New Zealand's psychic in New Zealand. Jeanette Wilson says that she can heal people, and she heals people not by directly doing it, but no, she channels dead doctors who will then tell you what it is that is ailing you, and then she will use the healing energy from that dead doctor to heal you. I'm not kidding. You can look it up on her Wikipedia page. But this is her website, and she's been kind of one of these people in the background. She's also started turning into more anti-vax, anti-5G, started making claims that women shouldn't go see get a mammogram. So it was very harmful. She decided she wanted to do a tour in the UK, and the UK skeptics, Michael Marshall, talked to the New Zealand skeptics. This is why we all need to get together and know each other, y'all. And he went and he was able to contact the different venues that she was going to be speaking at in the UK. And he was able to get a few of the venues to cancel her talk. And some of them to also say, hey, I didn't know, I'll never rent to her again, because she was going to be spreading anti-vaccine conspiracy theories in the UK. So he was also writing to all these different people, journalists who were doing stories on her. And when that happens, when journalists get involved and they write stories about somebody, it can be on Wikipedia. So the GSoW project got involved because we were listening to the Skeptic Zone, another really great podcast, Richard Saunders' podcast you should listen to, who was talking a lot about what was going on in New Zealand and with the UK skeptics about this Jeanette Wilson person. So our team is listening to this podcast going, hey, let's take a look into that and see if maybe we should get involved. She doesn't have a Wikipedia page, but because of all the media coverage that's coming up, all these journalists that are writing about her, we can write a Wikipedia page. And that's what we did. And if you look on here, and I don't want you reading this, so nobody's sitting here reading it because you're supposed to be listening to the presentation. You can check out Jeanette Wilson's Wikipedia page later. In this, and this is small print for a reason. But we wrote her Wikipedia page, and you can see one of the things that we put on there is that she has also promoted anti-vaccination and 5G views. That's right there in the lead. That's the thing that will pull up whenever you do a Google search on her, and it hits in the Google knowledge bar, that little bit. Because we know most people only read the beginning of a Wikipedia page. That's the lead. So it's extremely important. We teach people in our project to write a really strong lead. Also, which is important, is you can see these info boxes on the side, another thing that people hit, and this is kind of a trademark of Rob Palmer, who spoke earlier, of making sure these tags are on here so people can visually look at the page, go, oh, she's paranormal, I'm out of here. That kind of thing. Well, maybe they won't in this case. But what happened was, with Jeanette Wilson, is that I decided to attend one of her events because she found the Wikipedia page. She started having this meltdown on Wikipedia saying that, oh, I'm not anti-vax. I support vaccines. I support all this stuff. And actually it turns out that she supports vaccines that God puts on people. So I'm just saying, it's still there. They play with the words. So I didn't have to do this, but I decided I wanted to attend one of her events because that's kind of the things I do. And we went to one of her events, and she went on and on and on about ghost photographs and orbs and all sorts of things. And at the very end, I got to ask her a question. I told her, we have 100,000 people dead here in the United States. COVID is very frightening. We are really upset about this. What do you see about a vaccine coming? What do you know about it? 100,000 people dead. That's how long ago it was that I did this. Can you believe it? But she went on a 16-minute rant. She talked about how amazing Donald Trump is, how it's COVID's going to go away like a miracle, how Trump is getting rid of mandatory vaccinations, how 5G is a problem, how on and on and on. And she was selling a supplement that you could take that will protect your lungs and keep you from getting COVID. So I have this on video, right? What do I do when I hang up from the Zoom call with her? I send it to some New Zealand journalists. They interview her and they do a story on it. And again, once the journalist is able to do a story on it, the story goes on to the world where everybody can read it. Now, because it's a journalistic article, we can put it on her Wikipedia page. So what happened is, in this particular article from the spinoff, he told her, he says, what's this about you and your anti-vaccine views and so on? She said, I don't have anti-vax views. That's ridiculous. Of course I believe in vaccinations. Well, what we learned later is she's always been very careful not to allow recording of the parts where she says it's anti-vax. But I had the video and I shared it with this reporter. So he shared it with her and said, oh, really? You didn't say anything about anti-vaccines and anti-5G and promoting some multi-level marketing nonsense supplement and all this? He says, I just watched the video of you doing that. She's like, what? What video? Some psychic, right? So she got really upset. She contacted me and had me take the video down, which was totally fine. It's still there. I've got it. The only reason I had it up on YouTube in public was so I could give it to the reporters easily. So, so now that she has a Wikipedia page and then there's more journalist stuff coming out, we can update her Wikipedia page with more information. And so we expanded the lead, and now the lead says that she's a psychic healer who claims to heal people with the assistance of spirits. She also promotes New World Order and anti-vaccination views, unproven supplements, anti-5G claims, and dangerous COVID-19 health advice. So, and then we were able to expand the info box on the right. We were able to add the alternative and pseudomedicine little visual, and we were able to expand the article even further about dietary science and conspiratorial claims. So we expanded her Wikipedia article even further because of the activism that I and the New Zealand skeptics had done. And this is how you do activism, and this is how you reach out beyond our choir, because Jeanette Wilson just ran for, she tried to run for some position to challenge the leader of New Zealand. She was running for parliament or something like that. She was running for parliament, and that got more media attention to her Wikipedia page because people are like, who is this person, you know? Her campaign lasted 22 hours. That's how long, from the time she announced she was running for government to the time she said, I'm no longer working for government. She got a lot of pushback. And I think that all of this ecosystem of all the reporters and the UK skeptics doing their work and the people in New Zealand doing their work and Richard Saunders putting this up on the Skeptic Zone, which made the GSoW people get involved. It's all, everybody's doing their job and doing activism and getting this in writing and getting it to journalists who do great work. Made it so that it got onto this really amazing Wikipedia page. This woman is inflamed. She's so upset, and there's nothing she can do about it. And then now people are able to understand a lot of information about her, and it hopefully had a huge influence on why she is not running for Congress. Almost done. I guess I could slow down a little bit because I'm almost done with my slides and I still see I have some time. So Kenny Biddle, if you don't know who he is, you should know who he is. Jeanette Wilson had a section of her talk about orbs and ghosts, and I sent that section to Kenny Biddle. He made this very wonderful article for Skeptical Inquirer, which is also on her Wikipedia page that you should check into. He does fantastic work debunking ghost orbs and ghosts and ghost equipment, not just in a slapdash like this is junk mode. He explains it in a way that you can all understand it. So now if you look at, I looked at this last night. This is another Google search I did last night on using an incognito window to get a true value of what happens when you Google the name Jeanette Wilson, as you can see up there in the search bar. In my thing that came up is her Wikipedia page. So it ranked even above her Facebook page, it ranked above her YouTube channel and her other images. And you can see again on the Google knowledge bar on the right hand side that this information is coming up on her when you search for her name in a sentence or two, and it's citing Wikipedia is where it's getting that information. So we have a Wikipedia project with a little over 100, I think it was 130 of us. We're located all over the world. This is a picture of not my GSoW people. These are all happy people, but we are all over the world. We are active. We are writing about subjects we feel passionate about. So we have people writing about climate change. We have people writing about global warming. We have people writing about vaccinations. We have people writing about Bigfoot. We have UFOs. We have people writing about atheists and Scientology and all the stuff that's mentioned here and more. We've written over 1,500 Wikipedia pages. In fact, we have published 1,568 Wikipedia pages as of last night. And though I know you guys all like numbers because you're skeptics and skeptics like numbers, over 45% of the Wikipedia pages we have written are not in English. And I think that's something that we should really be proud of. Also, I want to mention that we write on Wikipedia all the time. All the time we're writing about things, but we can only track the Wikipedia pages that we have really written, completely rewritten, those 1,568 pages. And as of last night, hear this number, those 1,568 Wikipedia pages have been viewed 75,941,550 times. Yes, we are getting beyond the choir. This is how you do activism. So if you'd like to know more about our project, you can find us on abouttimeproject.org. We are doing things besides Wikipedia. We do GSoW facilitated communication information. We also do Monterey County Skeptics. And I'd like to invite you to our, if you're enjoying this, you'll love Monterey County Skeptics first online session, which is January 2nd, 2021, will be the first conference of the year. And that is it. Ta-da! Let me unshare my screen so I can go back. Oh, I did that fast. Sorry, guys. Thankfully, they're recording this so you guys can look at it later if you really want to.
All right, so now we're using the raise hand feature. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask Susan live.
Always ask, you guys can always contact me on Facebook Messenger. That's the best place to get information. Please contact me on Facebook Messenger if you have.
So Dan D had a question. Does the group have a website with a link to all wiki pages GSoW has edited?
You can find that on Facebook. It's called About Time Project. It is a Facebook group that every time we write a Wikipedia page, I put it up on my personal Facebook page saying, hey, you guys check this out. And then I also share it to a Facebook page called About Time Project. It has all the different things we do on there. You'll have to scroll, but there is no set page that has everything on it in real time that we've done, because we don't want to have people who are going to try to undermine us and just go between page after page after page after page and just try to do something to it. We have very little vandalism on the Wikipedia pages we've done, but just out of habit, we haven't put that up where you can see all of them. If you're a member of our GSoW project, you will have access to the stat tool that we use with all of it on it.
All right, so I guess Lisa Goodland has a question. Lisa?
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Susan.
Syracuse Skeptic.
Yes. I was wondering if you've been able to address on Wikipedia in any way COVID denialism.
Thanks, that's a great question. We have done a few, well, with Jeanette Wilson, we were able to approach it for people who were interested in skepticism in that area. We've done a lot of work on vaccinations and anti-vax groups. There's a lot of anti-vaccine groups out there who their name looks like they're a pro-science group, but actually they're anti-vax. So we've been doing a lot of that in Canada and in the United States, making the Wikipedia pages and making sure that it's very clear that they are anti-vax. So we've been really approaching the anti-vax and vaccine, pro-vaccine avenue, because it takes a lot of time to write these Wikipedia pages. And I thought, you know, as a leader of the group, I can't tell people what to do, but I kind of said, look, it's going to take us a lot of time. Let's focus on the vaccine things, because by the time we get the vaccine here, there's going to be a tsunami of you know, people are just going to be just engulfed in this anti-vax thing. So I think let's attack the vaccine pages first, because that's where we're going to get the most information. I think we have done a few other things with COVID. We wrote the coronavirus disease Wikipedia page, and that's getting a lot of hits. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't have my screen with me, but so mostly we've been focusing on vaccinations. Leon, who's here, just rewrote the Wikipedia page for yellow fever vaccine. Shoot, I can't remember. But the one that's strep throat, what is it called? Strep throat vaccine? I can't think what it is. Because the reason why is because there's going to be a lot of airlines and things like that that are going to try to put through vaccine, like you can't fly if you're not vaccinated. They're going to use some determine how we know if you've been vaccinated or not. Like the yellow fever had a paper that you had to carry around with you. How are they going to put these systems together? So they're going to have to look to the history of how we've done that in the past. So Leon went in and decided that he would rewrite the Wikipedia pages to make sure that the history of how that was on there, so that when people are looking for information, they'll be able to go to the vaccine pages and they'll be able to get that information. So we've been focusing on it from the vaccine side.
All right, and our next question comes from Kenny. 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 Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Biddle. Who let him in?
Hey, Susan! Love you.
About you. And it wasn't
I
good.
know, I was listening. My question is, for those people that might want to join your team and start getting into this project and editing Wikipedia pages, are there any prerequisites or special skills people need to do it, or can anyone just jump in?
Thank you, Kenny. That was a good segue that I didn't even mention. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Now cut his volume off and get him out of here. My team, a lot of them are here in the chat, so a lot of them I can see are answering questions. And so that's fantastic. Thank you so much. A lot of us have GSoW after our names, and so you can ask us questions. So yes, before you can be let into our team, you have to approach me on Facebook, and I want to do that because I want to make sure that you are on Facebook, because we meet in something called a secret cabal, and that is on Facebook, and that's how we talk and we train and so on. You have to do a pre-training exercise. It's not difficult. It should take you about 2 hours. So we want you to be able to make sure that you have opened up a Wikipedia account and you follow certain rules. To be a Wikipedia editor, everybody asks me about the time constraints. It's as long as it takes you to do this. You know, you can put in as much time as you feel like you need to. Some people devote hours to it a week. Some people have spurts where they'll come in and like they'll edit for a month and then we don't hear from them much for a while because, you know, they're maybe a teacher and they have some time off and they can do it. And training, yes, we have training documents. You have to go through them. I am the trainer. I do all the training, and it should take you on average about 2.5 months to do training. And I think Adrian's going to talk a lot more about this when it's her turn. So because she's going to talk about her journey in using being in this group and so on. So I'll leave it to Adrian. Make sure you pay attention to her talk.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And love you, miss you, girl. I miss you.
Well, Anyway, well, guess what? It's actually Adrian's turn now.